I am Minister Clemson Brown, President of Transatlantic Productions, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce today's program, Egypt in the West. About 2 weeks ago, my wife and I toured Egypt in the West. It is called Tamare, and I want to tell you that we were extremely fascinated with what we saw. Now, I have been to Egypt in North Africa 8 times, 4 of them with the great Dr. Yosef Ben Johanan. And I want to say to you, oh, by the way, that's me climbing the pyramid right there, one of the Great Pyramids of Giza. It's the smallest one, but it was still for me quite a feat to climb to the top of it. And I want to say with the most profound, and I repeat, the most profound understanding that nothing I have ever seen has impacted me more than seeing and being atop one of the great pyramids here in Kemet, touching and feeling it and seeing it with my own eyes, the temples, the monuments, walking along the Nile and realizing that this was the handwork of African people. European scholars have tried to claim that Egypt was not an African civilization. They say that Egypt was a creation of Mediterranean Europeans. The pyramids have stood for thousands of years, and until this very day, they have not been surpassed in their engineering and architectural feats. Men still marvel and wonder how they were built. It has been said that the builders of the Egyptian pyramids, the pyramids of Giza in Kemet, stand at the very foundation and center of civilization, modern science, technology. This is why there's such a fight over who were the Egyptians, who were the Kemetans, because it is out of Kemet that the foundation of our religion, law, government, astrology, astronomy, medicine, and science come from. Now you can see why I was so pleased to see black men and women recreating Egypt in the West at Tamare. It's really a part of us. It's in us. It's in our genes to recreate this great civilization. And I also understood why they would be confronted and why white people would be so upset and would move to destroy this marvelous edifice that these brothers and sisters have built here. They have come under very, very serious attack from the authorities in Putnam County where they are located.
It's wonderful to be here with you at Tamare.
Sure appreciate y'all coming out. Yes.
Perhaps you would kind of give our viewing audience first an introduction to yourself, let them know who you are, and then I want to talk about what you're doing here and just get the audience kind of a general idea of what Tamare, Egypt in the West is all about.
Well, my name is Pastor Chance. I'm the president of Holy Tabernacle Ministries Incorporated. I'm also a Baptist pastor of the Holy Tabernacle Ministries. And we are, as Egypt in the West, Tamare, we are basically about building an area which our brothers and sisters can come from all over the world to find out about our culture as being Nuwaubians and black people and red people and people of all various different backgrounds and cultures of the world. We are interested in having a safe haven here for the future, not only the present time, but the future of our children, their descendants, and their descendants on down the line. One of the main things we are doing here is building a drug-free, crime-free, opportunity type of land in which people can come and invest their talents, skills, learn different things about the order of life, as well as get a broader education on the various diversity of cultures dealing with humanity as a whole. So what we've done here is we've embellished the land with our cultural background, going back to the roots of our societies, being the pyramids, which is your middle fire, as well as dealing with your obelisk and your Sphinx and various different things. One of the main things that we see here is a place of enjoyment, safety for the family, and just a good, healthy environment, something like your Disneyland, but something that we as a people can enjoy having and calling our own, Tamare, Egypt of the West.
Pastor Chance, I don't know if you want to, maybe you can explain some of the things that people are seeing so they can get kind of an insight to this is such an interesting place. So if you would come here, say for a tour, what kind of knowledge and what kind of interaction would the public be able to get here?
Well, what's interesting about our land is that we have a great many different organizations which come onto the land. We have a lodge here that has what's known as the Wasit Temple, is known as the Wasit Temple, and we have the Brotherhood of the Black Light. We have the Sisters of Isis, Daughters of Zosa. We have Egyptian Tamarian priests here. We also have the International Egyptian Church, as well as the Holy Tabernacle Ministries, and Nuwaubians are in throughout the land. NAACP. We're also members of the Rainbow Push Coalition. You'll see the SCLC here, and various other things. We're a part of the Ministers Alliance, as well as the Concerned Black Clergymen. So you're going to find a great diversity of various different organizations who are here to basically upkeep our traditions and culture and show America that there's a good standard of life that we can live as a people, being educated and intelligent, in order for our children to have a progressive way of life to follow in.
I may ask you because right now Egypt is being taught in our schools and etc. When one comes here, some people may say, well, you know, that's not truly African history. You know, they perpetrating a fraud and saying that they are Egyptians and so forth. Maybe you'd just like to explain something about the authenticity of what people are saying in regard to it actually having an African root. What you are doing is actually our history, that you are for the world putting out facts in terms of what black people themselves have either created or descended from. How do you make that relationship?
Well, being that I'm a Baptist and I'm a Christian, and in terms of thinking about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I have to think in terms of the biblical answer to that question. When I look at the trouble that Jesus was having as a child, as a baby, and God had warned Joseph and Mary to take his son Jesus into Egypt. As a matter of fact, in Matthew 2:15, it said, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." And while being there, Jesus was able to go in there. The description of Jesus in Revelations, the first chapter, tells you that he had hair like lamb's wool, which is a woolly hair, curly hair. And it said that he had eyes of flame of fire, which would have to go with the black perspective of the way our eyes are. A lot of times they want to apply murine or visine to our eyes to make them white, but we are actually, people have inflamed eyes or eyes of flame of fire. It also spoke about them having feet like unto fine brass, as if it burned in a furnace. And I'm saying anything that you would place inside of a furnace is going to come out black. So in looking at the biblical sense, it's talking about a person that was an ancient being that came here to walk amongst men. And in light of the knowledge of God being all-knowing, he felt rest assured to send his son into Egypt, which was actually known as the land of Hataka, or it was the land of Ptah, the original Nuwaubians. So even in regards to when we think about Abraham, Abraham had went into the land of Egypt. He sojourned there. The Israelites were there for 430 years. When there was a famine, Joseph had went into the land of Egypt, and he became the second man in relation to the Pharaoh and all of his brothers and his father came there to that land during a time of famine. So Egypt has been a great land in a time of crisis, like in today's time. There's so many different things that's happening right now with the world. Just being in a very, very devastated state, we're glad to be in a safe haven here in Tamare, which is Egypt of the West.
Can I ask you, because some of my own knowledge, I'd just like to ask you, why should one be proud of Egypt? What did Egypt kind of give the world? I mean, some of the things that Egypt may have contributed to the world that you can come here and kind of get a feel or an insight to.
Well, I'd have to mention that a lot of the things that I'm saying I've learned from the Egyptian priest here and from the International Egyptian Church. And you get much greater emphasis on the information from them. But I like for here, for instance, we have here the pyramid, which is known as the Myrrh. And the pyramid has been like the focal point in the world. It's one of the great wonders that people of the world have traveled all across the globe to find out and to see the authenticity and the artwork and just the greatness admiring the pyramids. We have two, as a matter of fact, here. We have two pyramids. We have obelisks. The obelisk would go up in terms of when you had a great pharaoh, when he would come into his mission and come into his own, and his worth and knowledge and the greatness that he bestows upon his people as being a great spiritual being and leader. So we have our obelisk as well. We have what is known as the septet, which is the pylon or the gate, and that will go up also in terms of having a authority or a great pharaoh. We also have a Sphinx here. That Sphinx has a significance in its relationship to the pyramids, and the pyramids have their relationship to the Orion star constellation, the belt on the Orion star constellation. So we have a lot of various different things. We have ceremonial sites here in which people can be initiated into the ancient mystic order of Neteru. And we also have an Egyptian initiation school here. So there's a lot of various different things that are happening on the land of Tamare. I'm just glad to be on the land, to be able to learn from these great Egyptians, themselves Tamarians, and to spread the knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ to them. So we kind of like the exchange, and I'm just glad to be able to come into this knowledge.
I just have a couple more questions for you. Now, when I come in the gate there, such a beautiful gate, and I'm coming through and I see the flags and these structures. Can you tell us a little bit about that one? Because I think some people might say that, well, you know, they're worshiping all these sculptures or something, but maybe you can clarify that point that some of the Europeans try to say that you're worshiping idol gods and things like that. What does that mean?
Well, it's interesting because when we see President Lincoln and he's seated there over in Washington, it's really, he's in the similitude of Ramses II, who was in that same position as a pharaoh. When we think in terms of how they have the Washington Monument, which is symbolic of Cleopatra's Needle, or as I said, the obelisk, or as we know it as the Techem. When we look on the dollar bill, we find that one of the most significant symbols up there is the pyramid, and they have the words, "In God we trust." So we think in terms of the busts that they have of Jefferson, of Washington, of Alexander, Hamilton. What we're doing is re-gratifying our heritage, our culture, our traditions. We are reliving them by having them inside of our environment. We are just gratified to be in tune once again with Mother Nature, something that's very important because man has thrown off the ecological balance. When you come up through our gates and you see the various different statues, we're reminded of these are our great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers, and that they were great beings, and to us they were gods. Even as Jesus said, "Is it not written in your law, I said, ye are gods." So we are reminded of the greatness of our descendants, what they did for us, the laws they laid down for us, the education, alchemy, sciences, mathematics. These were great builders, agriculturists. You know, they left such a great legacy for us as a people that we wanted to be able to erect some great statues to remind us, our children, of our wealth as black people right here in America and then throughout the world. This is what we've been doing. The flags that you see coming in of all the various different flags are the various different flags that make up a part of the Tamarian tradition of us as also being Nuwaubian. And we as Holy Tabernacle Ministry are also proud of the great vintage knowledge and information that's been bestowed upon us in this day and time and the great wealth of this land. This is actually a ceremonial sacred land anyway of the Yamasee Native Americans. So traditionally coming up out of that particular background as being sovereign people or being people who are indigenous to the land. We were here before they brought about their particular Declaration of Independence with the Articles of Confederation with President John Henson and the great works of Benjamin Bannock, who did the architectural layout of Washington, D.C. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of great men and women who have gone into what you see here on the land, and we're very proud of that tradition.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps in closing, you might want to give our public kind of an overview of the kind of attacks that have come upon you and maybe why you think they are and what the public can do to help the situation.
Well, we've received every type of problem that you could imagine, everything from slander, defamation of character, lies. We've been hit with allegations, citations, litigations, violations. We've been called everything from racial slurs to being provoked that we could not practice our religious rights here. Like I said, the majority of the congregation, the Holy Tabernacle Ministries, we're non-sectarian, is Christian. And the problem that we're having here is, for instance, they closed down, they padlocked our church. I have never known in the history of America where a church, God's church, has ever been padlocked. So I'm abhorred with the situations that's taking place here. We've been arrested on our own land and falsely arrested. People have came on our land and videotaped our land without our permission. The town officials have lauded on our land. It's everything you can imagine. They seem like they've closed down all of our kitchen here, in which every church has a kitchen in order for you to be able to, just have certain finance from your congregation. We have our Holy Communion out of there, our fried chicken and our grains and various different things and dinners for the congregation, and they actually closed it down, claiming we had a restaurant, which did not hold. So we are in a situation today where racism is blatant, and these people are coming out against us. It's not a lot, but it's a very strong Putnam County officials type of group here. And we've asked everyone from Governor Barnes to Janet Reno, the Attorney General, the Justice Department has came in, a GBI. We've asked everybody to help us out in our plight here. We're asking ministers across America, the various different ministers and moralistic brothers and sisters, those who have a sense of altruism and just have that family feeling, to help us on our pray vigil. We're praying that our church will be loose, that it will be reopened, that the padlock will be taken off. We know that our people have the power of prayer, so we're asking that you will help us in this prayer vigil. And we are also asking if you have any type of insights, any type of help and assistance that you can make, that if you can call us at our number at 706-484-0098, or my personal cell phone is 404-374-2437. And we just want y'all to come down, if nothing else, to visit us. And you find that this is a very, very lovely land, it's a very pleasant land, and it's just the safest place to be in. The devastation that we're undergoing as a people, like I said, I can talk about it for hours. We have been under attack. Some of our women were taken out of cars and slammed down on the concrete. It's been a situation that we've had, like a lot of people have been arrested. We have also had situations where we had different family members that came in and they would check us on the outside. The sheriff's cars and things would be out there. And they checked out over 600 people coming out. They didn't find one DUI you know. And this is one of the things they did. They closed our Ramses social club, stating that we were selling alcoholic beverages in there. And the reality is we were holding church in there because we hadn't finished building the church, in which they padlocked. They padlocked our Ramses social club. They padlocked our church. They padlocked our office. They went inside our private residence. And I'm saying this is totally against our Bill of Rights, constitutional rights, the First, Fourth, and 14th Amendment rights. You know, these people are coming without any type of probable cause. They don't have any search warrants. And I could just tell you, it's just a situation of prejudice. So we're asking all the various different priests, pastors, and clergymen to come and help us to preach against this racist Jericho wall of discrimination, that we can pull it down in God's name. And we hope that you will be able to help us and assist us.
Pastor Chance, one question I forgot to ask you in regard to some of the traditional ways that you worship. You know, for an example, there are people who are walking and they're dressed in Egyptian attire,
right?
And you see them walking around the pyramid and so forth. Perhaps you can explain. Some people have said that this is evidence of strange and unusual going on. So perhaps you can explain that.
Well, it depends upon when you're coming here, because if you'd have been here last year, you'd seen the Tibetan monks coming through here, and they were walking through the labyrinth. We also was visited by the AME of Connecticut, African Methodist Episcopalian Church. We are non-sectarian. We've had people come here, Muslims come here. We've had Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventists, Catholics. And what you're going to see is a great diversity of people who are coming here to walk the labyrinth, to worship in the way in which they worship, and also to actually bring a certain sense of value about religion. Religious expression is up to the person in which how they want to express their gratitude in glorifying the Most High. And if my memory serves me correctly, David danced and he would play the harp. And that's one of the ways in which he would extol the Lord. When I think in terms of the Most High and the benevolence that he has showed us, the people of the planet Earth, I think the form, the fashion would be to each and every author of how they feel that they should delegate their particular way of praising the Most High. For me, being a typical Christian, I pray on my knees. But I am just in awe when I see the Egyptian priests pray. It's wonderful, it's lovely, beautiful. I'm in awe when I see the Tibetan monks pray. It was wonderful. It was just, the adoration is what I'm looking at, the adoration that these people show forth. And I think in terms of, we can all learn one from another. Even as Christ has spoken about taking his yoke that is easy, I think that we all need to take a yoke one from another and bear that yoke in all common humanity, in order that we can all lift our voices to extol the Most High and glorify his holy name.
What's the average number of people that you might get during the course of the year or any given time, and just, you know, your interaction with the public?
I reckon probably during the course of a year we might have anywhere from 20 to 40, 50,000, and depending upon how the year is going. This year was kind of rough because we had so much bad media. People were saying things, blatant lies, and we know that's one of the tools of the devil. Even as Jesus said, you are of your father the devil. He was a murderer from the beginning, and the lust of your father you will do. So we realize and recognize that we're in a day and time when people will come and they will bear the garb of being humanity and actually be demons. And this is one of the things that we've been under stress from. There's a lot of people that have been character assassinating us and putting out a lot of various different stories and things about us that's not, just simply not true.
Pastor Chance, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity just to travel the grounds and show people what is here. And I'm sure our audience is enthused and probably see some of it.
Okay, beautiful.
All right. Thank you very much.
You were telling me earlier that they padlocked the church. Why did they padlock the church? Under what ground? Hold on. Okay, Pastor James, why did they padlock the church? What excuse did they use?
They used the excuse of padlocking it because we
Now, you say we had what?
permit problems, that we didn't have proper permits for the pyramid. But the pyramid was actually the same pyramid that was done down on Greensboro Road, also known as Old Phoenix Road, right inside of Eatonton. It was the Jack Minsky building. And the same pyramid, the same people that built that pyramid down there came and built our pyramid here. The same plumbing, the same woodwork, the same electrical work, everything that was done the same was done down there as it was here. So basically they had a bogus ploy inside of their court system in order to close down and padlock our pyramid and other structures, and none of them can really stand up in a real court. The problem that we've had is because we've been inside of this racist court system as opposed to a federal court or even going to a much higher court than the federal courts. And this is what we've been dealing with as people, the racist attitudes, double standards, and the resentment of us building our culture here and presenting our culture as being people who are descended from great Africans, Egyptians, Tamareans. Okay.
And that you've had an opportunity to go out to Tamare, that you're kind of familiar with the, I said kind of, but you're familiar with the work that the Nuwaubians are doing. But before we get into that, I'd like for you to tell your audience, for you to kind of give us an idea of who you are, a little bit about your background and your association.
Well, my name is Joe Beasley, as you suggest. I, with the Antioch Baptist Church North, I serve as the Human Resource Director for the church, about 10,000 members. The pastor of the church is Reverend Cameron Alexander, who is the president of the Black Baptists in Georgia, about 600,000 members. I also serve as the regional director for the South for the Rainbow Push Coalition with the Reverend Jesse Jackson, which covers from Texas up to Maryland.
Very good. You've been out to the Tamare complex, I understand.
Yes, I have. And we've received numerous calls. I believe they initially called the Chicago office telling Reverend Jackson about their plight and their really persecution by the officials in Putnam County, and really specifically the sheriff, Mr. Seals, in Putnam County. And we received, as a matter of fact, I guess, several hundred letters from the Nuwaubians, not only in the Eatonton area, Putnam County, but really all over the country, pleading for us to get involved with the Nuwaubians, and because they felt, as I've been over several times, feel that they're people that's under assault, under attack, it's unconstitutional, it's illegal, must be stopped.
Mm-hmm. So when you went, what did you encounter, what did you see, what did you feel, and what do you think about it?
Well, when I went over and saw this group of African American citizens living in community with children, family, I felt really good because I had not looked over, some of the record of the history. They've been there for a number of years. Have never had any problems with the law. Nobody ever called in for any kind of domestic problems, any kind of drug, alcohol problem. Just I think, an ideal group of people living together in community and with high values and high ideals and with some real backbone to stand up and be black folks and believe what you want to believe, because after all, this is Americans who want to believe we have the freedom of religion.
Mm-hmm. 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 So what have you looked into some of the complaints that the sheriff and some of the newspapers have said in regard to this being a cult?
Well, yes, indeed. As a matter of fact, I went and met with Sheriff Seals, met with the county commission leadership, and I find Sheriff Seals, I told him, is a person that I think that is a little off in left field. Mm-hmm. I think he feels real threatened over there, and he have a God complex. He thinks he's a much bigger man than he actually is. Mm-hmm. And I suggested that to his face, because he thinks that he can, like, be, I guess, the sheriff and the judge and the jury and and the whole 9 yards, it simply is not going to work. We're going to be one of those shields that's going to help protect the Nuwaubian people, make sure they have right to movement in this country, and that the Nuwaubians are living in England, or living in Africa, or living in New York. If they want to migrate to Putnam County in Georgia on their own land, they must be afforded the opportunity to do that. And the idea of trying to reduce the Nuwaubians to a cult, and I've heard Seal out of his own mouth suggesting that, well, you know, Waco, Texas kind of a scenario. He'd love to do that, but what he's not accustomed to is having black men stand up and speak out, and that's what. And quite frankly, the bottom line is, the Nuwaubians have introduced an equation, something in the equation in Putnam County is going to change the political dynamics of the county.
Have introduced a new equation?
Well, absolutely. The political dynamics in that county could shift. And one of the things that the people in Putnam County, in Eatonton, and any parts of Georgia, any parts of the United States, really don't want to share power, especially with black people and African people. And so that's going to change, and we're going to be, as a part of the Rainbow Push Coalition, they're going to be here. And of course, I communicated with Janet Reno, such Janet Reno, the Attorney General, to get her office involved. Of course, they've gotten involved, and they feel as I do, that the sheriff and the officials in Putnam County is not affording the Nuwaubians their citizenship rights, and they introduce some ordinance kind of procedure. Now, when the Nuwaubians moved there 5 or 6 years ago, there was no real ordinances in Putnam County, certainly not out in the rural. But they've used ordinances now in some way to try to control, and so the sheriff, who is not a building inspector, have tried to use the lie that they've not received building permits to put up their church and other facilities. And it's really just kind of a crazy thing. They're going to lose. I'm sure that Mr. Brooks had indicated that the governor had the sheriff enter his office and to really try to get his head on straight. Quite frankly, I think that Mr. Seals is stuck back in the 50s somewhere. And so that's his problem. And if it means that we would invite our Nuwaubian friends from across the country to come in big numbers, perhaps a Nuwaubian could be the sheriff one day soon.
Let me ask you, do you perceive the undercurrent of racism from the sheriff department? What do you feel? I know you say it's political, but is the race card also a part of this?
Well, that's a central part. And, you know, whether you're from New York or whether you're from California, which California, of course, you probably know is the new Mississippi in the United States. So racism is endemic in this country. And so race is really at the heart of the problem in Putnam County. It's not just the politics, but race is at the heart of it. White folks don't want to share power with black folks, just simple as that.
Now, the Nuwaubians expressed to me a concern that the press and the coverage that they had gotten, especially outside of Georgia, was setting them up for this kind of Waco Jones situation where that the authorities would move in and shoot them. Do you think there's any grounds for that kind of concern?
Well, I think that their fears have some basis, but we put Putnam County on notice that not only the Rainbow Push Coalition and the church community, the NAACP, they're not going to be able to, SCLC, they're not going to be able to do this thing in a corner. But they certainly would like to use words like compound and their you know, and trying to say, well, they've got some wild ideas. They think that they're extraterrestrial beings, and Mr. York, a spaceship is coming to pick them up in 2002. I don't care what they believe. If they think a spaceship is coming and picking them up, so be it. They still have a right to move and to exist and think what they want to think. And I had which was quite disappointing to me, I had a Negro over there, called himself a preacher, had sent me a letter saying that, sent a letter to Jesse Jackson really saying that before you all go over to Putnam County, talking about investigating, you need to talk to me. I eventually caught up with him and talked to him. And he'd signed his name, he's well known over there, he'd signed his name as Apostle something. And I said to him, sir, I'm a Christian. And the way I believe that Christ only had 12 apostles. And, you know, this is 2,000 years later. Now, if you think you're an apostle, and Mr. York is an extraterrestrial, you know, both of you are coming out in left field, perhaps. So they've got a right to their beliefs. If you think you're an apostle, you know, then you're just living in the wrong era, the wrong century, and your head's on crooked, and, you know, you want to be an apologist for the white community, quite frankly, I believe.
Tyrone Brooks, we're
Good to be here.
pleased to have you here today on our story. Representative Brooks, just for our audience, would you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us some of your background.
Well, I'm a native Georgian. I was born in the rural farming part of the state. My hometown is a little small town called Warrenton. It's 100 miles from Atlanta, sitting between Atlanta and Augusta. I grew up there in a very segregated environment. And in 1960, I and other children, 15, 16-year-old children, decided that we were going to start our own civil rights movement. And we were going to desegregate the public school system. And it caught the attention of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And immediately there were SCLC staff members who came into my little hometown at the direction of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Ralph David Abernathy. That was my introduction as a child to the movement. Met Dr. King and Abernathy and other leaders when I was 15 years old, and my work through my community made me I guess you could say, a target of the white power structure as a child. And this was common across the South. It wasn't anything unusual about my hometown and me, because this was happening all over the South. Young people were standing up, fighting racism and discrimination in various ways. But through high school and college, I continued to volunteer and work in the movement. I never left the movement while getting my education. And finally, in 1967, Reverend Hosea Williams, who was one of those giants around Dr. King, he was in Dr. King's cabinet as an executive staff member. He called me and he said, we have a position for you now. We want you to come and work full-time because you've been a volunteer, you've been a warrior in the movement already. I was only 21 years old, and he said, we know you have other plans, we know you're planning on going to New York. You're going to probably join some of your relatives who are already in business in New York, but we want you to come back to Atlanta and take this position. We're holding it for you. I thought about it and I said, well, I've already been in the movement, I paid my dues, and I need to go on and do something else. Well, I took Hosea Williams' advice and I came to Atlanta one weekend to meet with him over on Auburn Avenue at the SCLC headquarters. And he walked me through the building and he introduced me to Dr. King again, and he said, Dr. King, I want to put this young fellow on my staff. And Dr. King said, well, it's all right with me, but you have to see Ralph, meaning Abernathy, because if you got hired at SCLC, you had to come by Ralph Abernathy. King didn't hire anybody. It was Ralph Abernathy behind the scenes, really controlling the organization. So Jose took me to Dr. Abernathy at King's advice, and he told Dr. Abernathy that Dr. King had sent us to him, and Dr. Abernathy said, well, Jose, you have the largest staff in the organization. Why do you need any more people on your staff? And Jose said, well, I just need this one. This is the last one I'm going to ask you for. Dr. Abernathy, well, I don't believe that. But anyway, Hosea handed Dr. Abernathy the little form that I had filled out, my name, address, social security number, etc. And Dr. Abernathy signed it. Hosea took it to the comptroller. I went on the SCLC payroll that day. So I went back to D.C., spent another week, got all my belongings together and everything, and I came back and I took the position, 1967. 1 year later, Dr. King was assassinated. And Dr. Abernathy began to move some of us younger staff members who were on the periphery of the organization, began to move us up into meaningful and significant positions. I was one of those. Dr. Abernathy asked me to be his personal assistant, to be his communications director, and later I became his national field director. I traveled with Dr. Abernathy all over the country and around the world. And when he left in 1977, I began to think about myself leaving. In 1979, Jose Williams, myself, and others left the organization to pursue other things. Jose was already in the Georgia House of Representatives. He was elected in 1974. Jesse Jackson left the organization in 1971. But I finally left in 1979. In 1980, the people of Georgia decided that it was time for me to serve in the House of Representatives. So it's almost 20 years. January will be my 20th year in the House of Representatives. But basically, people who know me from the civil rights movement. They don't view me as a politician. They see me as a child of the movement who's grown up and who's now in the body politic, in the political mix. So that's just a little bit about me.
Now, Representative Brooks, as you know, I'm here because you're one of those people who have visited the Nuwaubians out in Tamare.
Yes.
And I'd like for you to tell us what you saw and what you felt, and talk about your brothers and sisters a little bit.
Well, I first began to meet with the Nuwaubians in 1998, when one of my good friends, Senator Floyd Griffin from Millersville, was running for Lieutenant Governor of Georgia. There were many Nuwaubians working in the campaign for Floyd because Floyd, being a state senator, represented the area around Putnam County. And so he automatically attracted a lot of the volunteers from the Nuwaubian communities. I began to meet with them and talk to them and begin to get to know some of them, like Miss Renee McDade and others. And so finally, in April of 1999, I was invited to a Moors feast at Tamare on, I think it was April 24th, actually, on a Saturday. Floyd Griffin, his wife, invited me to join them at Tamare because they were having this Moors feast, and there were people coming from all across America. So I went down this beautiful Saturday afternoon and participated in the feast and enjoyed myself. That was wonderful food, 7-course meal provided by the Imperial Fairs restaurant, which is one of the finest restaurants we have in Atlanta. Entertainment, African-American entertainers, African-American magicians, African-American models. It was just a beautiful evening. So I was absolutely impressed with what I saw. But driving up to Tamare that evening and looking there at the site, looking at those beautiful pyramids and the other beautiful buildings on the properties, you're automatically drawn to that. You just have to go and see it. So sitting there and you know, participating in the festivities that evening, I said, well, I got to come back. Well, as the Lord would have it, that next Tuesday, I was asked to join the National Director of Field Services, Nelson Rivers, from the NAACP, who was based in Baltimore, and also the state president of the NAACP, Walter Butler. They asked me to ride with them to Putnam County to meet with the Sheriff Howard Sills, and I agreed to go. So we went down to meet with the sheriff to talk about the complaints that we had received from the Nuwaubians, indicating that their civil rights were being violated, that they were being picked on by the power structure there at the courthouse, that the sheriff and his deputies would come on their properties unannounced with firearms, would just try to incite violence, would try to provoke the citizens living there at Tamare. We explained all of this to the sheriff, and we said, look, we don't care what people's religions are. We don't care about their philosophies. We don't care about, you know, how they look. We don't care about who they pray to. We care about the fact that these are citizens of Putnam County, Georgia, the United States. They're taxpayers, and they have a right to exist. We left the sheriff, went out to meet with Miss Renee McDade, Pastor Marshall Chance, NAACP leaders from the local community there in Putnam County. And we talked to them for 2 hours about some other things that they wanted to share with us. So Walter Butler, Nelson Rivers, Ms. Ruth Ash, who is one of the secretaries in the NAACP state office, and myself, we left Tamare that night, and coming back to Atlanta, we all concluded that we should support the efforts of the Nuwaubians as they struggle to build their community, the Egypt of the West, Tamare, as they want to build farms, as they want to build hotels on their property, as they want to have entertainment facilities on their property, and as they want to continue with the progress that they started in 1992 in developing their 400 plus acres of land. So we made a commitment that we were going to continue to work with them. I have been back to Tamare several times. I was there for the Zed Festival at the end of June through the first part of July. Spent several days there, back and forth from Atlanta down there, and I invited an awful lot of the African American elected officials from around the state to join me, and many of them have. All of the elected officials in that area around Putnam County who are African American have either been there or who have indicated their support for the efforts to support Dr. York and the development of Tamare. I've spoken to Dr. Malachi York several times on the phone. We've had personal contact. He has now become a member of the Georgia Association of Black Elected Officials. He's an associate member because our membership is not limited to just the African American elected officials in Georgia, but we do have associate memberships where people from all walks of life can join. So he's now a bona fide member of GABIO, the Georgia Association of Black Elected Officials. I have seen nothing but positive attitude on the part of Dr. York, Pastor Chance, Ms. Renee McDade, and the other leaders. I have seen nothing but people trying to struggle to become a positive force in the state. Peace and love, protecting the environment, talking about getting involved in the political aspect of the county in terms of being a registered voter, supporting progressive candidates for public offices, working to make sure we have the best school system that will provide the education to our children, working to make sure that the criminal justice system respects all of us and not pick on any of us, not persecute any of us based on our belief or our association. So everything that I have seen or witnessed around Tamare and around being with the Nuwaubians has been positive. I'm absolutely amazed that the public officials in Putnam County cannot realize the value of what a Tamare could do for the county. I've said that, you know, Tamare could become a major tourist attraction, because when I was there for the Zed Festival, the latter part of June through the first week in July, there were people from all over the world. I met brothers and sisters from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, from Central South America, from Cuba, from Panama, from Brazil. Brothers and sisters came in from all over the world, from Alaska. And I was just absolutely amazed at the wide range of the leadership from the Nuwaubian community. I'm still learning the Nuwaubian leadership and the community and what it represents, but I have been impressed. And I think I speak for Joe Beasley, who is Reverend Jesse Jackson's regional director in this area. He's the regional director of the Rainbow Push Coalition, who's been there several times. Person up here that's been back and forth, you know more about the situation. So I went at the governor's request. We sat in this meeting, and the governor basically, said, look, we have to protect the rights of all citizens in Georgia. And if the people are not violating the law, then we don't see that there needs to be this overt reaction from law enforcement and from others in that county. And I think the message is going back to the judge and others now that the governor of this state is very concerned about how the Nuwaubians are being treated. But there have been rumors, because of the lack of information and the lack of understanding and the lack of communication, there have been rumors spread by, I think, the people in the courthouse there in Putnam County, that, well, this is a cult. These are people who believe in strange things, whatever that means. These are people who are going to embarrass Putnam County because they want a Waco here. These are things that the courthouse gang has spread in terms of rumors. And some journalists have picked up on this, and you've seen that kind of thing in their writings. Well, in me being there and watching and viewing and listening to the Nuwaubians, I don't see a cult. I see people who have their own religious beliefs, just like I do, I would be offended if someone called my church a cult because we believe in the same thing. So I don't think that's fair to say, well, here's a religious group, and that's the only thing you look at, their religion. You don't look at what they're doing in terms of the economy. You don't look at their concerns about the environment. You don't look at their concerns about education. You just look at their religion. That's unfair. Because in America, one of the premises of our Constitution and our foundation is that we should respect all religions. No matter what your religious belief is, we as a society, traditionally, based on our Constitution, have respected your religious diversity. That is one of the strengths of America, to respect religious diversity. Simply because you don't understand a group, you don't understand the people, you don't understand their message, should not allow you to go out and spread false rumors. But the Nuwaubians feel that this is a plan by the county officials to turn the public against them, to turn the media against them. And all of a sudden, they believe that if they continue to perpetrate these falsehoods about them, that yes, people are going to start saying, well, this is a crazy cult, that these people are strange, and they want to be like the Jim Joneses and like the Branch Davidians, David Koresh, and people like that. So the Nuwaubians have a valid concern that this rumor mongering will poison the minds of the people, to the extent that all of a sudden there will be this onslaught on them, as we've seen happen in Waco, Texas, and other parts of America. The Nuwaubians are not armed. I have not seen a weapon on any person at Tamare except the security guard at the gate. And all across America, there are security guards wearing guns to protect private property. We have security guards here at the Capitol who wear guns every day to protect public property. You can go to private communities all over America today, and you will see people wearing weapons to protect that property. The Nuwaubians are no different.
Do the public have access? I mean, can they go? How is the relationship between the general public and the Nuwaubian community? Is it an open community?
It's an open community to an extent. Certainly, on particular event days, you are welcome to come and go in and out of Tamare. But on certain days when there are no public activities, they believe that they should have security at their entrance. And I agree with them, because there are people who want to embarrass the Nuwaubians. There are people who want to come onto their property and do things that shouldn't be done, like maybe plant something on their properties and say, well, you see, we found this on their property. So I have some valid concerns about that. I don't think the Nuwaubians should leave that gate open. It is private property. There are gated communities in Putnam County that I can't drive in right now. There are gated communities in Atlanta and all over this nation. There are gated communities. So the Nuwaubians have given the public access to come and go when there are public events taking place. Now, I think in the future, what they want to have is an environment where people can come and have their family reunions, have conventions, come and shop, purchase clothing and food, come and purchase materials and books, journals, come and purchase tapes, videos of events and speeches. They want to have that accessible to the public, but they have to develop that. It's not developed yet. But I agree with them that they should have the right and the opportunity to protect their property and to make sure that those who are not inclined to support the Nuwaubians and their development are not allowed to just come and go on their properties. Now, the reason I think it's a wise move is because I'm a child of the movement, I'm a veteran of the movement, and I know that at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, when I was there, we had a security guard who was at the front door. And the reason we had the security guard was to make sure that our enemies couldn't come into SCLC and plant things around there and then run out and get on the phone and call the FBI, the CIA, and say, well, you see, they got guns in here. They have drugs on their property. So I'm more concerned about someone who's trying to hurt the Nuwaubians planting things or bringing things on the property that could in turn be used to destroy the Nuwaubians' credibility. I don't want to see any weapons on their property. They don't either. They don't have any guns out there. The only gun you'll see is the gun worn by the security guard. But the sheriff has said, oh, they're stockpiling weapons. Well, the sheriff rushed onto their property one day with all of his deputies. They searched up and down, everywhere, all around, and couldn't find anything. But they put out that rumor to make the media and the public think, well, they're hoarding guns. They got guns on the property. There's no guns on their property. I don't own a gun, don't want a gun, and don't like to be around guns. But I do recognize that for the sake of your private property, even some churches have armed security guards, that you sometimes need to have an element of security for your protection and for the protection of your members or your visitors. So this is the situation there. And when you hear these things about, well, you know, this is some strange cult and, you know, they believe in things that we don't understand. Well, look, if you don't understand it, go and talk to the people. Go read what they're reading. And you don't necessarily have to agree, but you ought to at least give yourself the benefit of the doubt to understand why they have the beliefs that they have. You know, I'm a Christian. Look, I'm a Baptist, and I don't expect everybody to agree with everything we do in our church. But I'm the kind of person who's going to respect your beliefs, your religion. It doesn't matter to me what you believe in, what God you worship. That's your business. And I urge the people of Putnam County to take that attitude toward the Nuwaubians, as they have done with other religious groups who are living in peace in Putnam County. So I hope that all of the work that people like myself have been contributing to the Nuwaubian effort will lead to a full development of Tamare, so that one day we'll be able to go down I-20 and we'll be able to exit and go into this community and have fun, have conventions, have family reunions, have retreats, and it could be a model for other development in America. This is going to be the Egypt of the West. And it's a beautiful community. It's in the rural part of Georgia, not far from Atlanta, not far from Augusta, not far from Macon. It's an ideal setting. And I would hope that the leadership of Putnam County would recognize the value and the potential that this represents in terms of economic development.
My brother, Representative Brooks, I want to thank you, and I'm sure that you made very clear what is happening and your support. I appreciate it very much, and I do hope that you stay with them.
I will.
Closely.
Promise you.
Thank you very much.